Hey everyone, welcome back to the Mass Retirees Weekly Update. Today's Friday, September 30th. I'm Sean Duhamel. Thank you so much for joining with us and tuning in. Can't believe that we're at the end of another month and into the final quarter of the year. There's a lot going on here at Mass Retirees, so let me just jump right into things. First and foremost, I want to share some breaking news, hopefully good news for all of you who have been interested in additional Mass Retirees area meetings taking place. We are going to hold 3 additional area meetings and 1 virtual teletown hall event to close out 2022. Now, the 3 meetings, one will be in Auburn, Mass, at the Elks Club, where we have traditionally met in Central Mass. And we will also have a meeting at a new location in West Springfield. And then the final meeting of the year will take place at another long-standing destination for Mass Retirees. That's down in Westport, Mass on the South Coast, once again being held at Whites of Westport. Now, it has been 3 years since we have held these meetings in various locations of the state, so we are super excited to get out there, engage with you, see you in person once again. But we're also going to continue to hold virtual teletown hall events indefinitely going forward. Our teletown hall meetings have been very popular. We have had a number of members who either live outside of the geographical areas that we traditionally hold our meetings, or just simply are not able to physically get to a meeting, but find a lot of value in, calling up and listening in and participating over the phone. So on Friday, October 21st at 1 o'clock, we will be holding our virtual teletown hall meeting. Why we selected this date is for 2 reasons. One, we're still in the middle of the general election cycle, and we're hoping to have 1 or more statewide candidates on the call to talk to our members and talk about why they're running and what their positions are relative to the issues that are directly important to Mass Retirees and all of our members, as well as hopefully take some questions from all of you. In addition to the election, October 21st is the day right after the next Group Insurance Commission meeting. And why this is significant is that we're expecting in the very near future, and perhaps at the October 20th meeting of the GIC, that some announcements and some decisions are going to start to be made relative to the procurement process that has now been underway for the past several months. As all of you know, the GIC is in the process of selecting all new health insurance plans, as well as the 2 pharmaceutical benefits managers currently under contract. Now, we could have a situation where the status quo prevails and all of the existing carriers are brought back in for a new contract cycle. Or we could also have a situation where we have some new players, new insurance companies brought into Massachusetts. Right now, we simply don't know. But we think that some of those decisions will start to be made publicly at the October 20th meeting. So by holding our teletown hall the very next day, we want to be able to update all of our members on the latest news relative to the GIC. And if you're a local retiree who's insured through your health insurance plan locally, remember, the decisions made by the GIC still impact you. Your local city or town can pretty quickly institute the decisions and the policies made by the GIC at the local level. State law allows municipal governments to implement what are known as GIC lookalike plans. And they can do this with very little input and involvement from unions and local retirees. So it bears keeping in mind that that's why we pay so very close attention to what's happening at the state level, because state policy can very quickly become local policy, which is wonderful if it's good news and good policy, but it could be a bad situation in terms of co-payments, deductibles, plan design, those sorts of things. So that's why we put such a spotlight on that. So as I said, we're excited to be able to hold these meetings once again, get back out there, engage with our members, get your input. We are going to press on Monday with the November newsletter. We want to make sure that the newsletter is printed and published and mailed out to everybody as soon as possible. In addition to having all of the updated information on all of the issues that we're working on your behalf, We have also included a general election endorsement section for those candidates who are running for contested seats, meaning that there's more than one candidate, and who have earned our endorsement for this election cycle. So we have included all of that information within the newsletter. We want to get it in your hands ASAP. Vote by mail will begin the second week of October, with early voting coming later in the month of October, and of course leading up to Election Day itself on November 8th, which is the second Tuesday of November. So there's a lot going on. We want to make sure we get that information to you. Now, in terms of the election, some of you may be aware that a week ago we conducted a survey of Mass Retirees members who are voters here in Massachusetts, and I realize some members living outside of the state accidentally got one of these survey calls, so I apologize for that and any confusion it may have caused. But we wanted to solicit the opinions of our members who are voting here in Massachusetts to get a sense of what your thoughts and feelings are going into this election cycle. And we tried to keep it relatively narrow and simple by just asking just a handful of questions. Now, the most important thing that came out of the survey, and this just reaffirmed what we already knew, is that a very, very high number of our members vote year in and year out. You're what is known as super voters. You turn up to vote, whether it be a state election, a presidential election, a local election. You know how important getting involved in the electoral process is, and the great power of our association is our membership and how engaged all of you are in public policy and in campaigns and everything related to that. Super important. Well, we had over 4,000 members participate in last week's survey. 88% of you said that you are definitely planning to vote in the November 8th election. And an additional 3% said that you're most likely to vote. So that came out to 91% of our members are either definitely voting or most likely going to vote in the election. And that's just an astounding number. It's just mind-blowing of just how high of a percentage of our membership are active voters. And let me tell you, the politicians and the elected officials and government officials, non-elected government officials, they know that you vote. And that makes a big difference when we're advocating on your behalf on Beacon Hill or down, in any city or town hall or even nationally. The elected officials know that you vote. So 88% are definitely voting. Beyond that, we asked also a couple of questions just to gauge your feelings of how things are going in the country or here in Massachusetts. And the results pretty much mimic what we're seeing in public polling across the board here in Massachusetts. Now, in terms of the question of, do you believe that the country as a whole is heading in the right direction or the wrong direction? 47% of you indicated that you believe that the country is heading in the wrong direction. However, when we asked the same question about the direction of the state of Massachusetts, do you believe that the state is heading in the right direction or the wrong direction? 56% of our members indicated that Massachusetts is heading in the right direction. So that's good news for those of us working here in the state and all of the work that's being done politically. And it just shows the value, I think, of the cooperation that takes place between Democrats and Republicans, or progressives versus moderates or conservatives, that we have the ability to work together to actually get things done here at home in Massachusetts. And that same situation does not always exist nationally, or at least that's the perception amongst folks, which I believe is a pretty accurate perception. The other questions that we asked are relative to the governor's race, as well as 2 of the 4 ballot questions that will appear on the November ballot. In terms of the governor's race, 65% of our members indicated that you're supporting Maura Healey and Kim Driscoll for the next governor, lieutenant governor. 24% indicated that they plan on, or that you plan on supporting former state representative Jeff Deal. And these numbers are consistent with what we saw 5 or 6 months ago when we surveyed our members in the spring to get a sense of the governor's race and a few other political questions that we asked at that time. I believe back then 60% of our members were supporting Attorney General Healey in her campaign for governor. That has now increased to 65%. Now, in terms of the criteria that we use in our endorsement process, and I'm just going to quickly repeat this because we've said it time and time again, the only criteria we use in determining who to endorse for a mass retirees endorsement is whether or not that candidate supports public retirees, has a track record of supporting public retirees, and will stand with us when the time comes for votes on the House floor or the Senate floor or statewide policy. Someone's record speaks for itself. And in the terms of the governor's race this year, Maura Healey has a record of standing with public retirees. We have worked with her consistently over the past 8 years on a number of issues relative to public retirees, and at times she has sought us out to insert herself on your behalf when it comes to Group Insurance Commission policy and other statewide issues that her office has some jurisdiction over. Unfortunately, the same cannot be said of former State Representative Deal. When he was in the House of Representatives, he had a record of opposing legislation that was specifically important to public retirees. Health insurance, public pensions, and so forth. He was on the wrong side of those issues, and because of his record, that disqualifies him from any consideration for our endorsement right out of the chute. Now, when you look at our November newsletter in the endorsement section, you're going to see endorsements for Republicans and Democrats who stand with public retirees, support the issues that are specifically important to public retirees. And these decisions on who we are endorsing have been made without any consideration for party, for ideological stands. Again, all we are looking at is whether or not that candidate supports public retirees. It's pretty straightforward. Now, in terms of the two ballot questions, question 1, the so-called millionaire's tax, 55% of our members indicated that they were planning on voting yes on question 1, which would add a 4% surcharge to income taxes for individuals or couples who are earning more than $1 million a year. And that's where the so-called millionaire's tax comes into play. So it would be an additional 4% on income, taxable income beyond $1 million. And again, 55% of our members indicate that they plan on voting yes. Now, if question 1 is successful, the money that is brought in new tax revenues will be earmarked for infrastructure, transportation, and public education. Those are the 3 areas that will be identified or indicated within this change to the state constitution where those funds will be earmarked. Now, in terms of question 2, which is relative to dental insurance, 71% of our members indicate that they plan on voting yes on question 2. Now, what question 2 will do or would do if it's passed is it would require that at least 83% of dental insurance premiums go toward paying for direct dental care for patients. Right now in Massachusetts, there's a requirement on the health insurance side that health insurance companies have to spend at least 88% of insurance premiums on direct patient care. But that same type of requirement does not exist on the dental insurance side. There is no requirement. So a group of dentists got together here in Massachusetts, which has led to the support of the Mass Dental Society as well as the American Dental Association and other organizations to support this ballot question, which would establish the 83% medical loss ratio is what it's referred to, that no less than 83% of those premiums would go toward paying for direct patient care. Now, the dental insurance companies, led by Delta Dental, have indicated that if this question is successful, it could result in dental insurance premiums increasing. However, if you read the Red Book, which is the voter guide sent by the state to all registered voters in Massachusetts, the language of the ballot question makes clear that dental insurance premiums cannot increase as a result of the ballot question. Now, of course, the devil is always in the details, as they say. And Mass Retirees has not taken a position on either question 1 or question 2. We simply posed the question to our members, and we've relayed some information, and we will be relaying some information through our newsletter about what each of these questions is about, but we're not going to be taking a position on question 1 or question 2. All I would suggest, if you want to learn more about either question, refer to the Red Book. That's where you're going to get factual information that does not have a political bias one way or the other, for you to help make up your mind of how you want to vote. The last thing I want to ask is that for those of you who have not yet contributed to the Public Employees or Retired Public Employees PAC, our PAC, we are now in the final stages of our 2022 PAC drive. The PAC, of course, helps to fund our political operation, helps to support the activities of the association relative to advocating on your behalf here in Massachusetts. It also allows us to make political contributions to those elected officials or candidates for whom we are supporting on your behalf. Contributions to the PAC are voluntary. However, it is very important to our overall operations that we have a vibrant, well-funded PAC. So if you're able to contribute and you haven't already done so, please do so. You can either go to massretirees.com. There's a link in today's email message to all of you. The link can also be found on our website, as I just indicated, or look to the mailing that recently came to you about 2 weeks ago from me that contains a self-contained envelope to send back to us. And again, we appreciate the generosity of our members, and if you're able to contribute and you're willing to participate in the PAC, it certainly helps our overall operations. But with that, looking forward to seeing many of you over the next couple of months, and we will be reporting on ongoing activities. There's a lot happening this fall, so stay tuned, and we'll be back to you really soon. Bye-bye, everybody.